Hi and welcome to this GCSE Physics revision lesson on national and global energy resources. So first of all, we need to know the difference between what a renewable energy resource is and what a non-renewable energy resource is. And the definition that the exam board want you to know is that a renewable resource is one that can be replenished as it is used. And that keyword replenished is useful to use in your answers with AQA. If you were talking about a non-renewable resource, it is therefore one that cannot be replenished as it is used. So let's have a look at some of our different energy resources. Okay, we'll start with fossil fuels, which are coal, oil and gas. Now, coal, oil and gas are a reliable source of energy, as long as we manage to keep up our supplies, which are actually running out, but for the moment they're reliable. They produce quite a large amount of energy. But the disadvantage is they're not renewable, so we're not replenishing them as we're using them. They produce carbon dioxide as a waste product, and that carbon dioxide goes up into the atmosphere, which leads to the greenhouse effect and therefore ultimately climate change. Coal and some parts of crude oil, some of the oils produced, have sulfur dioxide as a waste product, and sulfur dioxide dissolves in water to produce sulfuric acid, creating acid rain. So what are fossil fuels used for? Well, we use them for electricity generation, but we can also use them for transportation. Petrol is made out of crude oil, for example, and we use them for heating. So, for example, the gas in our central heating systems. Okay, a different type of fuel is nuclear fuel. Nuclear fuel produces a very large amount of energy per kilogram of fuel, much higher than for the same amount of a fossil fuel. It doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, so we don't have the problems of acid rain or climate change being produced, and it's reliable. But it does produce radioactive waste, so that waste will stay radioactive for potentially thousands of years. So it needs to be disposed of incredibly carefully. It's also non-renewable. But at the moment, we've got a very large supply compared to what amount we're actually using. We use it for electricity generation. We can't currently use it for transportation or domestic heating. Biofuels are the burning of organic material. For example, wood would be a biofuel, which we burn to release energy. You could also use other substances like agricultural byproducts, chicken poo, for example. So some advantages. First of all, it's carbon neutral. So when we burn these organic materials, they do release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But while we were growing those organic materials, they absorbed exactly the same amount of carbon dioxide. So the amount of carbon dioxide released during burning is exactly equal to that taken in during the life cycle of the plant or animal that we are using as the fuel source, and therefore overall there's no extra carbon being added to the environment. It's renewable and it's reliable. Disadvantages: it needs quite a lot of land to produce the extra biofuel, and that's land that could be used for food production otherwise, and it does release carbon dioxide. We can use it for electricity generations, burning it in a power plant. We can also use it for transportation, and some vehicles have been adapted to be able to run on vegetable oil, so the waste oil from chip shops, for example. And it can be used for heating, a wood-powered fire, for example. Wind has the advantage of being renewable, and it also doesn't produce any carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide. However, it's unreliable. We've only got wind there when it's windy. And some people say that turbines are unsightly, so there's often opposition to a large wind farm being put up near where people live. It can be used for electricity generation, and of course wind has traditionally been used for transportation in the form of sailing boats. Hydroelectricity is the production of electricity from falling water, so it's usually on rivers where you've got water flowing downhill. The main advantages: it doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, it's reliable and it's renewable. However, to get hydroelectricity, we need to build large dams, and those large dams cause floodings of large areas. And that flooding not only damages the habitats of the animals and plants that are living there, but it can result in emissions of methane from the decomposing plants once the area has been flooded. And that methane is a greenhouse gas and therefore contributes to global warming. Uses for hydroelectricity, only electricity generation. Geothermal power uses the heat from inside the crust of the earth. It's reliable, it's renewable, and it doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide. But it's really hard to set up because you have to drill into the earth's crust, and it's not effective in all locations. Some places like Greenland have a lot of geothermal power usage because they've got those hot rocks closer to the surface. It can be used for generating electricity. It can also be used for heating homes directly. Now, the tides are the movement of the seas and oceans due to the gravitational pull of the moon. And the advantages of using tidal power are, again, that it's renewable, reliable, and doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide. But tidal power facilities can only be located in river estuaries, so in the mouths of the river. And they're also easily damaged if the weather is particularly bad. The uses, just generating electricity. Solar power, again, is renewable and doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, but it is unreliable. It has to be sunny. So in a country like this one, it's not very reliable for us. The production of solar panels is also quite resource intensive. So the raw materials for the solar panels have to be mined, and that has its own ecological impacts. We can use solar panels for generating electricity. We can also use it for heating, where we use solar panels that have water running through them, and that water feeds into our central heating systems. Wave power is the movement of water as a result of the wind. The advantages are that it's renewable, it doesn't produce carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, but again, it's unreliable because it's based on the wind, and it has to be located along the coastline. Once more, the only use for this is for generating electricity. Okay, so those are our different types of energy resource, and you need to be able to look at trends in the use of those and explain why the patterns have changed, as well as giving the advantages and disadvantages. So you might be asked to explain why the use of coal has fallen over the last 50 years, for example. And there you could talk about the development of renewable resources, the better environmental effects of using those. You might also talk, if you were asked about why over the last 100 years the amount of coal power has increased, you might want to talk about increased use of cars, increased population sizes, increased industrialization around the world. So there's lots of different things that you need to take into account. You also need to be considerate of reasons why we're not tackling climate change, and the reasons why we are slow, even though we can see what these environmental impacts are, the reasons why we're slow to take action on them. So the economic difficulties with taking action, the political difficulties, the social difficulties in making those changes. So you need to be aware of those factors as well. Okay, I look forward to seeing you next time.